So welcome back to the Drum Electric. So I get asked quite a lot about how I run different backing tracks and click tracks on a gig. This could be when I'm just playing on my own. Hopefully that doesn't happen much. But this could be when I'm on my own and I've just got click and a backing track, or this could be what usually is when I'm running tracks with click with a band. So we're going to be doing exactly that. We're going to be building a little backing track rig that you guys can use straight away. It's really simple and it's really easy. We'll be using MainStage for this because it's a really nice starting point and it's a really powerful program. This is where I started on doing all of this. So I started on MainStage, getting to grips with how that worked. Then I moved up to QLab for backing tracks. And then now I use Ableton to run all my tracks, all my pads, stuff like that. If QLab and Ableton are of interest to you and you'd like to go a little bit deeper into how to use those, or you want to see my rigs and stuff like that, please comment them down below. But for now, we'll stick with MainStage because it's a good place to get your head in on all of this when it comes to backing track rigs, because it's very similar to how Ableton works. It's just slightly more complicated than Ableton because you can do a little bit more in Ableton than you can with MainStage. Plus, MainStage is really nice in the way that you can just drag and drop stuff and it's just super easy. So this is part one of a two-part video. This is the simplest form. So this is a nice, quick and easy thing and something that I use all the time. Basically, we'll just have a stereo track. Pans to the right will be your backing track and pan to the left will be your click track. It's really nice and simple, and it's a really nice way of doing it through MainStage, because then in part two, we'll get a lot more complicated, where we'll actually use stereo backing tracks with stereo click tracks with multiple outputs and stuff like that, which is a lot more fun. So if you don't want to miss that video, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know exactly when it comes out. For now though, let's grab our Macs, let's deep dive into MainStage and let's build this little backing track rig. So welcome in. For those that are usual subscribers that know me and have watched other Drum Electric videos, you'll know that every single time we do something like this, I'm always behind the kit. And every single time, I'm always, and welcome behind the kit. But today, my friends, we are in front of the kit. So, welcome in front of the kit. So we're going to start building this MainStage rig. I'm going to bring you through the whole thing. You're going to be here with me and we can do it together. Oh yeah. But there is some pre-prep we need to do before we can head into MainStage. So that's actually making our backing track. And this is relatively straightforward. It's nothing too scary. It's a good time for everybody. So you can do this on any DAW that you like, a DAW being a digital audio workstation. I'm doing this in Logic. There are free versions, of course, like Audacity, which will absolutely do the same thing. We don't need any of the fancy features. We just need to do essentially two things. So I'm heading to Logic. The premise is the same. Everything's exactly the same. It'll just be different buttons in different places for your particular software of choice. So this is Logic. You've seen it before if you watched any of my other videos, and you'll see it again if you hit that subscribe button. But I've just got some stems in here. I've got them from Epidemic Audio just purely for copyright reasons, and I want to make sure that this can be seen by everybody. I don't want to be wassailing copyright stuff, and some people can't hear the video and it doesn't work, and so we're going royalty free, baby. We're going with Epidemic sound. So we're here in Logic. It's really simple. I've got 3 stems because that's all there is to this track, which is great. I've got bass, drums, and instruments. So bass and drums not being instruments, of course. And then I've just got a click track. All I've done there is I've synced up the original track to the Logic tempo, which is 117 BPM. And then I've just made a MIDI track, chosen some sounds that I'd like to be my click. And then just, as you can see, I've written out 3 bars. You'll hear the first 2 in a second. And then a third bar, which just I've literally looped for the rest of the project. It's really easy. If you want to see exactly how to do that with all the details, please comment it down below because I'd love to make that sort of video. But for now, this is what it sounds like with the click. So a really nice little pop funk doohickey. Now with the click, I like to have as much control as possible, hence why I've written it MIDI, because then I can choose my sounds, I can do stuff like that. And as you can hear, I like to have an 8-note click, just because it's a lot nicer to play to when you've got that offbeat shaker going on. It's just a lot nicer. So that's all set up. We've got all the stuff there. We've got our click. We've got our stems. Now we need to make it customizable. Now, as drummers, that means we need to mute the drum track. If you're another instrumentalist, then welcome aboard to this very drum-heavy drum channel. But you will need to, of course, mute the relevant instruments. Now, this is where it gets very custom to your setup. So if you have multiple instruments or you have a drums and percussion thing and you want none of that, then you'll need to mute that accordingly. But that, like I said, will be custom to you. For me, I'm just going to mute the drums. So I'm going to hit mute here, and this is what we're left with. You can really hear that compressor on that bass track. Oh. Okay, that goes through the whole track. Obviously, we've got the click, we've got no drums, it's a good time for everybody. So, how do we make this into our backing track? Very easy. Find your pan button and pan the click to one side and the rest of the stems on the other. It's as simple as that, okay? So for me, I'm going to pan my click to the left, and then I'm just going to pan my bass and my instruments. I'll pan the drums as well, why not? I'm going to pan all of those to the right. That is it. It's crazy. Okay, so from there, all we're going to do is hit the bounce button, bounce this down as a .wav or a wave if you're in Logic. Make sure that sample rate's 44.1. Make sure it's all on the same sort of thing, just for ease. Hit OK, and then export it to wherever you want it to be exported to. Then we can exit out of Logic and head straight into MainStage. So welcome to the usual MainStage. If you've never seen this before, then this is the quick start menu. If you have seen this before, then welcome back. You probably know your way around this. So for simplicity's sake, that's a stupid word, I'm just going to load up one of the presets. Obviously, MainStage is very, very customizable, but we're looking for simplicity here. So I'm just going to head down to the little mixers button and then 8 backing tracks. Choose that bad boy. It's a good time. Wait for him to load up and we're all good. Okay. So then we're met with this gorgeous concoction, and I'm not talking about me. Well, I am, but that's anyway. So there's a lot going on here. If you've never seen this before, then this can look like a lot, but I promise you, it's very nice. It's very gentle. Now, if you're using multiple songs, you've got loads in your set, then this is a great place to start. If not, then as I said, you can customize it completely. But I'll just show you how this kind of works and break down kind of what's going on a bit here so you understand it. But I always recommend you just go headfirst straight into this, hit some buttons, see what it does. There's always a Command Z button. Undo is always your best friend, I promise. That's how I learn stuff. You just hit stuff until stuff works. But for now though, what's going on here? Basically, we've got our playback here on the right and then our patch list on the left, so we can see which patch we're going through, okay? You've got 8 different tracks. That means you can have 8 different songs, which is fantastic. That's across the bottom here. You've then got the mute and the solo buttons, as if you're looking at a mixer, because you are looking at a mixer. Then you've got the little playback things up here, which you'll be able to see in a second when I import my song. Then above that, you've got time remaining in the middle, the title of your patch. Then you've got the left marker, the right marker, count in, fade out, cycle, play, stop, return. So there's a lot of different buttons that you can mess around with, and it gets very, very interesting when you've got a MIDI controller and you can do it all that way. For now, we're just going to use the one track, so that's all we need. Now, to put our track in there, we're going to need to go over to the right here on the channel strips, and then on our first track, so that's B track 1, labeled at the bottom there, we're just going to need the playback input. Now, you're probably wondering why there's 8 different auxes there. That's for essentially part 2 of these videos. So that's where you're going through an audio interface. You've got 8 different outputs you can output these through. So you can output them to 8 different auxes. It's a good time. But we don't need to worry about that for now. We don't need to worry about it. All we need to worry about is that playback. So we just click that in the middle. This bad boy comes up. We just need to go over to File, choose our track. So there's mine there. Open. Give it a second to load stuff, and we're in. Easy as that. So I'm just going to hit play to make sure it works. Great. So you can hear we've got the click on the left, and then we've got that bass line on the right. We've got the band on the right. Now, this is pretty much good to go. You don't actually need to do much more with this, but I'm just going to show you a couple of stuff that I like to use along the way because it makes it more fun. So at the bottom here, you've got a sync. Normally I have that off, but if we lob that on, that means it syncs with MainStage's tempo. So as you saw the tempo here, it changed from 117 to 120 BPM. That's because MainStage's tempo is at 120 BPM. Just make sure you go over to the cog at the top right here, flex mode, and then polyphonic. That just basically means that if you change the tempo in MainStage, you're playing your song a little bit faster that day than you can. So if I hit play now, you can hear that it's 3 BPM faster. It's got a little nudge to it. So this is a really good way if you need to quickly change the BPM on the fly. I wouldn't recommend changing more than 8 to 10 BPM because then it can sound just a little bit weird, but hopefully you won't be playing your songs about 10 BPM faster on the day because that's a significant amount. Obviously, if you want everything to be exact, then just keep that sync off. It'll go back to the original tempo and this is what you get. Okay, so that's obviously only the one song because I've only exported the one song, but if you have 8 different tracks, then you just do this 8 times. You just go along that mixer, go the next playback, the next playback, the next playback, stuff like that. So as you can see here, I'm going to go over to perform so you can see it better. Takes up the whole screen, looks real fancy. On our first track, you can see the waveform, the audio file up there. You can see the name of the original track. You've got a solo, mute buttons, and then the volume, okay? So to control it, just hit the play button up top here. There we go. Then we have control of the audio, as you can hear. So if you need to mix it louder and quieter with your sound engineer, you can. Then you can mute it. Solo it, which obviously doesn't make a difference. You can see how much time is remaining. And stuff like that. So it's a really handy tool to have. And just hit the stop button and that all works. You can then hit return button to go back to the beginning. You can, if you don't have those 2 bars of click like I do at the beginning, you can actually turn on the counting. You can also fade it out if you don't have a particular ending. And then you can cycle certain sections with different markers in the actual track. But this is its simplest form. This is your backing track rig. You can now hook this up to, if you've got a drum pad or a MIDI controller, you can hook up this whole system to that. So you don't have to touch your laptop at all. You can do it all from a MIDI controller. It's really, really cool. So to send out the audio to your sound engineer, it's actually really easy. I recommend buying, I've got a little stereo jack to stereo XLR. So I get one little jack that I put into my headphones, and then I've got 2 XLRs, one of whichever one the track's on, so in my case I've panned it to the right, so I'll give them the right XLR, and then the left XLR will go to my own little in-ear rig so I can hear that click. It's as simple as that, and hopefully you shouldn't have any problems with it. As long as you've exported it correctly, you'll be all good to go. But there it is. There's quite a complicated setup for a simple rig, but we will use more of it in part 2. And that is it. We now have a little custom backing track rig that we can noodle with, we can adjust, we can change to our liking, which is one of the great things about MainStage. Like I said in the beginning of this video, this is only part 1 of 2, so make sure you hit that subscribe button for our second part video. That's, like I said, where we'll build a stereo rig where we're working with stereo tracks to get a really nice sounding backing track that you can send the click track out to multiple band members. So we're going to be sending the backing track out of outputs 1 and 2, for example, and then the click track can go out of as many outputs as you like. So if your whole band is running an in-ear rig, you can send each member a click track, which is a whole heap better than just the drummer, because that's where things get very exciting. If you have any questions about this, please, as always, lob them in the comment section down below. I'll try my best to answer as many questions as I can, but if you know the answer, please join in, start a conversation. It's a good time for everybody. As always, please hit that like button and subscribe for all of our shiny new videos, and I will see you in the next one.